What's good, everyone? It's your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Duck himself, and today, guys, we're going to be playing Pokemon Crystal, like old school Pokemon Crystal, and this time it's going to be another mono type, but we're using flying type Pokemon only. Now, I added another rule to my mono runs or whatever, but in this one in particular, well, the last gen didn't have any rules to set, but in this one, we're going to play with only Pokemon from that generation. So going forward, whatever mono type we decide to use, we're going to use Pokemon from that generation only. So in this case, we're only using Gen 2 flying type Pokemon. So I decided it'd be a real fun thing to do, and boy oh boy, what a challenge. What a challenge, in a word, yeah, because the Pokemon for Gen 2 flying types, that is, not all of them are good. Majority of them are pretty bad. There's like 2 good ones, and then the rest are just pretty not great. And the biggest problem with Gen 2 is, of course, the move pool. The move pool for a lot of these Pokemon are absolutely abysmal. You have flying Pokemon whose only flying stab is Peck. Yep. Peck. So I was scraping the bottom of the barrel for this one, but this is a really tough challenge because on top of that, I decided that, well, since Gen 1 worked so well and really well, everything was super strong, I decided to put another handicap on ourselves. So not only we're going to use only Pokemon from that particular generation for the mono-type run, but we're also going to use a bit of hardcore Nuzlocke kind of rules. One rule I like in particular, but we're going to keep adding rules as these things go because I want to continue to challenge myself. But we're only going to have Pokemon maximum at the level cap of the ace Pokemon for whatever gym leader. So for example, Faulkner, first gym leader, his ace Pokemon, the Pidgeotto, is level 9, so my Pokemon can't go past level 9. I think level 9 and level 10. But without further ado, now that we know the rule set, let's jump into the run. Now, as always, things start off, talk to moms, holler at Professor Elm, and this time we actually chose to go with Totodile. Reason being, anytime I get to swing on a Chikorita, I'm gonna take it all day. Had nothing to do with the fact that we're gonna swing on a super effective damage, but realistically, it's a Chikorita / Meganium. It was gonna get bodied up free anytime. So anyway, now that we have the Totodile, we get to swing on our rival, who I'm going to name Valiant once more, because that's my man's right there. After we get Valiant, we go to catch our first Pokemon. Now that Professor Elm figured out, whatever's going on, blah blah, whatever. So now that we got our first Pokemon, we are going to have it be a Hoot. I explicitly wanted to play this game at nighttime starting out, so that way I could catch a Hoot. Now, Hoot isn't a very great Pokemon, but he will absolutely and emphatically do. And Hoot this time around, it will be named Box, after one of my other closest friends. Now, I'm thinking next time we do this, though, we name Pokemon after, I don't know, some sort of theme or whatever, instead of just always naming it after my friends constantly 24/7. Nevertheless, slim pickings for the Pokemon in these earlier routes as far as flying types go. So our second choice is actually going to be a Zubat. We go to Dark Cave, collect ourselves a nice little Zubat, and then we're gonna be pretty much ready for the first gym. The first couple of battles don't really matter, it's just Pokemon tackling each other. Not a big deal. But let's actually get to our first attempt at the gym though. So how this fight kind of goes is that both me and Faulkner have 2 Pokemon apiece. His Pokemon are a level 7 Pidgey and a level 9 Pidgeotto, or I have a level 9 Pillow and a level 9 Box. Now the thing is, his Pokemon have Gust as an attacking move. I'm pretty sure it's still a 40 base power attack, but at least they have Stab. Now, all I have is Supersonic on Pillow. It's essentially a third wave Pokemon, because its only other move is Leech Life, which does next to nothing, okay? On top of the fact they're flying types and they resist the attack itself, it's like 15 base power, and it's non-stab. It's literally useless. So the whole strategy in going to this is having Pillow use Supersonic to force him to be confused, and then use Tackle with Box. Now, that's not a very solid strategy. I have to do this for 2 whole Pokemon. One of the Pokemon, the Pidgey, I can kind of do that. But the Pidgeotto is going to be the big issue because it hits harder, has more defense, it's faster, and has more HP than all that I can muster. So it's just gonna come down to a lot of luck and a lot of guessing. And I actually lost 10 times in a row to this. But with some perseverance and a bit of, actually that's no strategy at all. I used the exact same strategy because there was no other way for me to win. The only other maybe possible way is if I had another Pokemon, a third Pokemon. Now, this early in the game, the only other Pokemon I could have caught that would fit in this run would be a Ledian. because it is a second generation Pokemon, and it's also technically a flying type. The problem with Ledian though is it's going to get ducked immediately. It's Bug. They have Gust. They're going to use Gust and basically one-shot it. It's essentially useless. And I think it's another supersonic kind of Pokemon as well. So maybe I could have possibly, if used it in case Pillow, whatever. It's a Ledian. It wasn't going to do anything. It doesn't even have high defense. It has high special defense, but it doesn't have high defense. And it absolutely would have got bodied by Gust. So this is what I have to work with here. It takes a long time to get done, but fortunately we get lucky enough on the 10th attempt and we finally take down Faulkner. This was a 1-hour fight. Oh my god! Finally, let's go! Gee! With the Zephyrvash firmly in our hands, we now have a couple of things added to this playthrough. The level cap increases from 9 to 16, which is a huge jump. That's because Bugsy's ace, the Scyther, is level 16. Also, we end the stream that day and come back tomorrow morning, so that way I can actually catch a Hoppip. Now Hoppip, which we will name Teth, is going to carry so hard in this playthrough, it's beyond insane. Because the cool thing about Hoppip is basically useless when it comes to offensive measures, but support, it is god tier. And the great thing about it is that it's very fast, so in most cases it's gonna get its Sleep Powder, its Poison Powder, its Stun Spore, its Leech Seed off, which funnily enough are the moves that we use for the most part of this entire run. Mind you, we do kind of use Headbutt because we needed to have an attacking move, but for the most part, Teth is going to be our Leech Seed, Sleep Powder, and Poison Powder Mon. Any Pokemon that gives us a lot of trouble, Leech Seed, Poison Powder, or Leech Seed, Sleep Powder. It doesn't matter, that's how it gets done. And to be fair, it's kind of cheap. After noticing how well it did this entire run, I'm thinking maybe we shouldn't probably run a Pokemon like this anymore, because it just makes it super easy. Anything that poses any problem, just throw Teth at it. And that's kind of what I do. But moving on, we go to fight Bugsy. Well, Bugsy and his gym trainers are all bug-type Pokemon, and since my Pokemon are flying-type Pokemon, we have a advantage over them, because we finally actually get Peck with Box. So I told myself, we don't have to go to level 16 for the level cap. Let's just go in here with like level 14s or whatever we happen to be at, and just go and swing on them that way, because honestly, the gym trainers weren't really nothing to really worry about, and hell, even Bugsy isn't too much to worry about, because like I said before, now that we have some powder moves, any Pokemon that gives any kind of grief, we're just gonna hit it with some powder stuff. Well, Bugsy isn't a real threat. I mean, he has a Metapod, and then after that he throws out a Kakuna. Both of them go down with no ceremony. The only real thing he really has is a Scyther. Now, Scyther can be kind of scary, even with our resistance, if he gets a good Fury Cutter going. But Teth, the real progenitor of madness, the one who loves the violence, he made sure none of that was happening. So because of his abilities with the powders, wasn't a fight to really worry about at all. So Bugsy is a wash, and I mean, it's surprising actually, but really not so much at the same time, because Teth is a god and we're flying type Pokemon and Bugsy has bugs. So after we get the Hive Badge, we go right outside, and we get jumped by a rival. But then again, I mean, the rival at this point in the game isn't a huge issue. With our Pokemon, even not themselves being so great, Box all by himself swept his entire team. The Ghastly gave him a little bit of pause by putting us to sleep and spiting us for about 20 of our PP, but we use just Peck and Box to smack the Ghastly, turn around, smack the Zubat, and then finally smack the Bayleaf all by himself. We almost got close to fainting, but for the most part, not a real issue. I wouldn't worry at all, because this is the homie Box, and you know, it was a Bayleaf, so yeah, he's a wash. Moving on. So from here on out, well, not really here on out, but from here going forward to the next gym, there's not necessarily much going on. We go through the Elix Forest, no issue, and then there's a bunch of trainers we fight before and after Goldenrod City. Mostly we were just fighting them to level up our Pokemon, preparing ourselves for Whitney, because Whitney has for the most part always been a very tough gym leader for a lot of people playing the second generation games. Heck, even when the remasters came out in the 4th gen, she was still a bit of an issue because that Miltank is just so godlike. Miltank is a very strong Pokemon that is kind of wild to be given to someone so early in the game, but nevertheless, we prepare ourselves for Whitney, and by doing so, we evolve or get really close to evolving a couple of our Pokemon. One Pokemon for certain actually gets evolved, that is Box. Box evolves to a Noctowl. Teth himself evolves into a Skiploom, and on top of that, he actually gets Sleep Powder. That's the one. he gets sleep powder, making himself even more godlike. So now we have incredibly fast sleep, as well as Box himself having hypnosis, so we're putting a lot of people to sleep from here on out. So with the level cap being increased to 20, let's go see what Whitney is like. So per usual, Whitney starts out with Clefairy, and then we start out with Pillow. Now, the plan here when fighting Whitney is to rob Whitney of turns. I know my Pokemon aren't quite powerful, even though we do have Box the Noctowl and Teth the Skiploom, but I do know that even with these things, Miltank has rollout, and if it gets to like more than 2 turns, it's gonna completely sweep my entire team. So the plan here is to rob Whitney of turns. Use things like Confuse Ray and Hypnosis and Sleep Powder to make sure her Pokemon do as little to me as possible, which is how we take down Clefairy. With the mix of Confuse Ray, Lost Confusion turns, and just biting it to death, the Clefairy itself goes down. Now, in comes Whitney's Miltank, the big Don Dada. So what I decided to do was swap with Teth. With Teth, we use Sleep Powder to put it to sleep. Immediately after doing that, we switched to Box the Noctowl. Now, the reason we switched to Box the Noctowl is because out of all of our Pokemon currently so far, Box still has the highest defense and attack. And realistically, we don't have a whole lot of hits to really do anything with, so we're just going to use Peck. But before we do that, we need to cover our own bases. Now, the big issue with Miltank is that it hits really hard and it has rollout. So we're going to take its ability to hit really hard away. By that I mean we're going to growl quite a few times, forcing the Miltank itself to have less attack. After a couple of growls, and maybe putting it to sleep with Hypnosis, which frankly, honestly, we don't miss a single Hypnosis, which is relatively godlike. We just peck Miltank down to the point where it's forced to use a milk drink, we sleep it again, and then we peck it all the way back down, and defeat the Miltank. Quite honestly, the best run with Whitney I've ever had in my entire life. So after collecting our plain badge from Whitney, who reluctantly gave it to us, we head north of Goldenrod City into Ecruteak City, and then from there to the Burn Tower where we fight our rival. But honestly, the fight doesn't go any better than it did last time. Instead of using Box to sweep, we instead use Pillow to sweep. So until something interesting happens with the rival fights, we're just gonna skip them for now. However, with that said, after defeating his Bayleaf, Pillow actually evolves into Golbat, so good job. Now we have 3 fully evolved Pokemon, and frankly only 3 Pokemon on our team. But let's change that. Let's actually go get a couple of more teammates. Is what I would love to say, but due to an error on my part, I'm sure, I actually messed up the recording, and something wild happened, and it's gone. I cannot recover it, it's just lost to the ether. But essentially what happened is we beat Morty, and we did get at least 1 new member on our team. We are now at the new level cap, and our new member will be Valentina, a Mantine that we caught on the way from Olivine City to Cianwood City. So essentially what we're doing now is we're collecting another teammate, and not 2, that we're going to name Andreas. But I'm so sorry you won't be able to see the stuff in between because I lost that footage, but the show must go on. So what we do now, after, the loss of all the footage and everything, we are going to continue going through Olivine City, get to the top of the lighthouse, and along with the training that goes on with us being in the lighthouse, Andres evolves into an Exatu, which is totally cool. Then we talk to Jasmine, and she says we have to go, help her pet duck or something like that, and then we make our way all the way back to Cianwood City to fight Chuck, the fighting type gym leader. But in case you guys haven't been paying attention, this is a flying type only run. I'm using only flying type Pokemon. Chuck is a fighting type gym leader who is weak to flying type Pokemon. We just picked up a psychic and flying type Pokemon who has a 4 times resistance to fighting moves and has 2 stabs that can actually hit fighting types for free. Chuck is not going to be an issue. I'm just gonna say we sweep him. Poliwrath doesn't do anything because we have Teth. So honestly, it's a waste of time to just talk about what happens here in this fight. So we're really not going to. As you'd imagine, it was free. So moving on. Now that we have the Storm Badge, we talk to Chuck's wife, who gives us the HM for Fly, and then shortly afterwards, Teth evolves into Jump Pluff. Good job, Teth. But in another bout of, bad luck, we lose more footage. Now, the footage that we lost was actually just us beating Price, the Ice Gym leader, which is technically our 6th badge, because Jasmine has a higher level cap than that of Price, and Price is technically the 7th gym. So we usually do Chuck, Price, and Jasmine. Anyway, we lose the prize footage and we also lose what happens with the Team Rocket, but realistically, the Team Rocket thing, whatever. We've never discussed it up until now. We're not really gonna discuss Team Rocket because nothing about them really happens, and none of the fights are actually pretty difficult in the first set of Generation 2 games, i.e. the OG stuff. It only gets really good in like Hard Gold, Soul Silver when the teams get really tough, and that's those are noteworthy battles. But nevertheless, the absence of prizes footage is a bit of a bummer because that was a very tough gym. I mean, even though we're flying type Pokemon, I'm smart. Those ice types, well, they hit. It was like one-shot city, and they're kind of bulky. We couldn't just hit them for free, so that was a pretty solid fight. I'm really mad that we didn't get to keep it. The one Pokemon that really keep us alive was the fact that Teth could put Pokemon to sleep, and Mantine could resist ice-ish, kinda, sorta, and then slap Piloswine with Surf. But yeah, since we missed that, now we have to get a very tricky, the final member of our team, which would be a Delibird. Now this Delibird is going to be a very special Delibird because in order to actually be the one we need this Delibird to learn egg moves, so we have to do a bit of breeding. Now mind you, breeding sucks. In Gen 2 breeding sucks a lot. So we're skipping all the breeding and we're just gonna give you guys the end result, that is the Delibird that we have now that we're naming Itty. Shout out to the homie Idmunster, of course. So now that we have our Delibird, we use him to, you know, do this Team Rocket stuff. We said we weren't going to talk about Team Rocket stuff, but we use Itty for the Team Rocket stuff right here. Gotta get him leveled up. Everyone's level about 30, so we gotta get him leveled up. Nothing really happens here, so Itty gains a bunch of levels, and we move on with our lives. So after finishing off Team Rocket, we head our way back to Blackthorn City. Blackthorn City is where the final gym lays, and where we have to fight Claire, Queen of the Dragons. So she's half the reason why we chose to pick up Idmunster, the Delibird, but also because we need someone to swing on Lance. And I don't know if you guys know, but Lance is the champion, and he has Dragon-type Pokemon, and we're flyers, and we ain't got no real means to swing on a dragon guy like him. So this is Itty's first true outing on his abilities to see if he's actually worth it or not. And before, the only thing he could really learn as far as ice moves would be like, I think like Icy Wind. But with the egg moves, the breeding, we were able to teach him Aurora Beam. That's what was so important. We needed Aurora Beam. Aurora Beam isn't super strong, but it's the strongest ice move we can get because you don't get Ice Beam until after you beat the Elite Four. And yeah, it's kind of what we had. So anyway, let's talk about Claire because this fight was actually pretty interesting. So let's take a gander. So in the gym battle with Claire, Claire has 3 Dragonair and her famous Kingdra. Now the 3 Dragonair are relatively the same if I'm not mistaken. One has like Ice Beam, one has Thunderbolt, and I think the other has Flamethrower. That's the only true difference between them. And then you have the Kingdra, of course. So the whole point of fighting Claire, obviously, to get the, you know, the gem badge, but she was a trial run for Itty, like I said, for Lance. Now Lance has 3 Dragonite and a Gyarados and some other Pokemon, whatever, but I wanted to see how well Itty works against these Dragonair. Mind you, Dragonair is much weaker than that of Dragonite, but Dragonite has a 4 times weakness to Aurora Beam as opposed to Dragonair's single type. Now, I know I could have probably done some calculations. There's a calculator out there, a Pokemon calculator. I'm sure I could do that, but I'm not that smart. I came here thinking, okay, I'm relatively on the same level as her Pokemon. What if my on-level Pokemon swings on her on-level Pokemon, and if I one-shot, then we're gaming, right? So, the plan was simple. Use Teth to put them to sleep, Leech Seed if need be as well, and then swap in Itty to one-shot with Aurora Beam. That was literally the plan, and the plan worked to perfection. Teth is amazing. Honestly, going forward, if a Pokemon in any one of my playthroughs can learn Powders and Leech Seed, we're not teaching it to them, because watching this fight made everything so very clear. If it wasn't crystal before, it should be very translucent to you now. Having the ability to make your opponent's Pokemon do nothing, and you literally do everything, makes it not very fun to watch, honestly. The drama is gone, you know, there's no anticipation for anything. Dude, I put it to sleep, I hit it with Leech Seed, I swap to the next Pokemon. If anything happens to the next Pokemon, no big deal, swap back to Teth, put it back to sleep. That never happened, mind. But this is super easy, you know what I mean? The Leech Seed always hits. It's gonna, not always, but it's gonna do damage all the time. So by the time 80 comes in, that's 2 ranks of Leech Seed, well, 2 rounds of Leech Seed taken away from the Dragonair. And then even if 80 doesn't like automatically slap with the Aurora Beam, I mean, the Leech Seed will finish it off. So it was just, this was just too easy. Now, the only one to give us any, I'm not even gonna say issues, because I'm gonna keep it real with you guys, I didn't get hit not once this entire fight. Kingdra didn't do anything. I swapped back to Teth. Teth put it to sleep, of course, and then we hit it with Leech Seed, obviously, and then that was basically it. Like, I used Teth to hit it with like headbutt and stuff, because I couldn't use Aurora Beam on the Kingdra, because Kingdra isn't resistant to that device, but its water and dragon typing makes the only weakness to this Pokemon at this point in time other dragon moves. And the only other dragon move in this entire game that does actual damage is Dragon Breath. And you get Dragon Breath by fighting Claire, so you can't really swing on it. Mind you, there is Outrage, but whatever. I don't have a dragon type Pokemon. No other Pokemon outside of a dragon type can learn Outrage, so I can't hit a critical effective damage. So, Leech Seed and some tomfoolery it is. So after we snitch on Claire for not giving us the Rising Badge, they eventually give it to us, and then afterwards we fly all the way back to New Bark Town because we gotta get into Johto. But before we do that, unfortunately for the time being, we're going to bench Valentina, the Mantine, our Surfer, because, well, we need Waterfall, and then no one on our team could learn Waterfall. And once you cross from here to over there, you can't get another Pokemon Center PC access until the Elite Four. So Valentina and Fort will be boxed until the Elite Four, so you won't see anything from Valentina. But we grab a Gyarados, the red Gyarados, then we just teach it Surf and Waterfall, and then we make our way. So, with that said, we move on, and then we make it into Johto proper. Now, not proper, but technically Johto. A lot of really tough trainers out here. The level cap for our rival battle is 38, so I have to be very careful in how I actually fight these trainers, because it'd be much easier if I had Valentina, that way we have more experience to share. But we get all the way to the end, get to Victory Road, then we go to fight our rival. Now this is the one fight we're actually going to show, because this, I mean, it's his last battle. I might as well show something, you know what I mean? So let's see what actually happens with our rival battle. Our rival leads out with the Sneasel. Now, Sneasel isn't a very good Pokemon. In the second generation, he didn't really have much he could do. Very, very frail Pokemon, if you will. So, we initially led with 80, but I decided necessarily wasn't going to be the play, so we swapped the pillow. Reason being, I knew that he was going to try to go out here with Fury Cutter, because I don't even think it has an ice move. So, I know Fury Cutter being the move that it is, you know, the more you do it, the stronger it gets, but we have a 4 times resistance to it. So, it's going to take at least 4 hits to do anything to us as Pillow. So my plan was to stall it out and just use it for Leech Seed, because, well, not Leech Seed, Leech Life, because I didn't have full HP. You know, I figured I could cheese my way to full health here. Granted, the plan was to Leech Life and Confuse Ray, and hopefully Confuse Ray would make it lose turns, so that way it wouldn't get stronger and do that much more damage. Granted, it wasn't doing enough damage in and of itself, but Leech Life itself, is not a very strong attack. You know what I'm getting at here. He's not hitting me for a lot, I'm not recovering a whole lot, because the damage I'm using is weak, the damage he's using, well, the move he's using is weak. So, eventually, we get the Sneasel knocked out. We don't necessarily get as much health back as I would have liked, because Fury Cutter hit every single time, even through the confusion. But, all things considered, I still call it a relative net gain, because the HP that we did gain off of this is going to help us when we bring Pillow back in later in the fight. So, with the Sneasel down, we decided to actually swap out Pillow, mostly because Valent sends out Magneton. Now, Magneton is a Pokemon I've been afraid of this entire fight, well, this entire run, because it's Steel and Electric. Our flying moves do absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the best course of action for it is to stall it out. The only Pokemon we have to fight Electric types with is Jumpluff. Shout out to the homie Teth, simply because Teth has that partial grass typing, and grass is resistant to that of electricity, so being grass and flying gives us a neutral to the electric attacks. Luckily, he only really has Thunder Shock, but in another bout of bad luck, how I tried to get Confused Ray to hit and actually make the Sneasel lose turns, I tried to use Leech Seed and Sleep Tactics over here, so the Magneton could lose turns. Didn't happen. If anything, the inverse did. he paralyzes me. And because I'm paralyzed, I myself lose turns to actually attempt to sleep him. Funnily enough, this fight is ridiculous. I actually don't get to sleep until like the last round of leech life or whatever on him. Super annoying, but eventually we take him down. I lost way more health than I would like to here. I would have actually loved to have the Leech Seed down so we can switch into something more appropriate, have them gain the health off of it, but no dice. Anyway, Itty's mad strong with the Aurora Beam. When our rival sends out Golbat, the Aurora Beam one-shots the Golbat. Perfect, that's 2 times damage. We really like how Itty is working in this run, because he's going to be the one to fight Lance for us, and he has amazing damage on his Aurora Beam. Mind you, we would have loved Ice Beam, but he has really good special attack thus far because we train him to have really good special attack, so he's actually doing pretty well. So our rival switches in Haunter. We knew right off the top that the one we were going to swing on Haunter with was going to be Pillow, because Pillow has Bite. Now it's not Stab, but it's the only special, the only move that's super effective against Haunter in this particular case. And truth be told, Pillow's probably going to be one of our best Pokemon throughout the run, because it's just really good and has great matchups to everything. Not everything, but a lot of things due to its resistances. But we swap out from the Kadabra because Kadabra's pretty quick. We can't kill it with one shot on the Bite because Bite isn't physical in this game, it's special. If we can't one-shot it, it could probably one-shot us. So we swap out to Box because Box is like pretty bulky on the special side, and he takes it out with a single return. Shout out to the big homie Box. Box is also gonna be a really big person in this run, the Elite Four run, because he's kitted out pretty nicely. I have newfound respect for Knockdown because of this game. Now Andreas was actually, in my opinion, a really good switch here. The problem that we had off the top is that as soon as we go up in the sky with Fly, Meganium puts up Reflect, having the damage of our physical attacks, which flying is in this game. Or for the most part, all flying moves are physical anyway. So the Fly does negligible damage. Okay, so I'm like, alright, cool. I'll do a pretty funny strat that I used to like doing. I used to like putting up Future Sight and Fly. But as soon as I click Future Sight, he comes out with another Body Slam and paralyzes us, making this super annoying. And because we're paralyzed now, there's a chance that, well, one, we don't outspeed, and because we don't outspeed, we can get crit with Body Slam and go down. Hugely shameful. I shouldn't have kept him in there after the paralysis. I should have swapped immediately, but we swapped back to Box because Box is pretty godlike. We set up our own Reflect. Okay, we still take a bit of damage off it, more than I would have earnestly liked, but we do land Hypnosis, guaranteeing that we can at least get one Fly off. So that's what we do. The Reflect from Meganium phase, which is perfect, and we fly in the sky, and as it snoozes, we come back down and not necessarily one-shot it, but we clean up the rest of his health with our one Fly attack. And with that said, that will be the rival battle. Now, mind you, not really difficult, like I said in all the other ones, but it was his last battle, so I figured I at least should talk on it, because his team is actually not that bad. On paper, his team is pretty good. It's just the move sets are really bad, and his choices, because his AI is really bad. But with the last hurdle out of the way in front of before the Elite Four, we're going to grind like never seen before to go against the Elite Four. So the Elite Four level cap is going to be 47, which will be the highest level Pokemon that Karen, the final actual Elite Four member, has. Her Houndoom is level 47. We grind it out for that, and then I noticed afterwards that, okay, Johto's pretty easy. The Elite Four, especially with flying types, funnily enough, is pretty easy. I should have probably capped myself at like 45, 44 or something like that. Give myself more of a challenge because we fly through here. No pun intended. But let's take a look at the first battle with Will. Fighting Will, the psychic member of the Elite Four, is pretty interesting because he leads with an Exatu. An Exatu being a flying type, one that we have, we actually with Itty. Itty one-shots with the Aurora Beam, takes it completely out, which is amazing. Now, after that, she actually sends in Jinx. Now, Jinx is a pretty interesting Pokemon, so we have to swap out over to Valentina, who resists the ice on its water typing, so that way it can take neutral damage from anything that it can deal with as far as ice goes, because we were all flying type, we would have got one shot by it. With Jinx down, though, he swapped out the Slowbro. Now, Slowbro was another interesting one because very bulky kind of Pokemon, so we're going to have to rely on Teth again. Anytime a Pokemon means us any real issue when it comes to their bulk, we always, as this friend has really noted, we swap to Teth. Of course, with Teth we're going to be using Sleep and Leech Seed, but to further enhance his bulk, he decides to use Amnesia, making it very difficult to break him on the special side, even on top of the fact that he's very physically bulky. So we just kind of forced it out. I spam a bit of Poison Powder here to save on some Mega Drain PP, just in case we need it for later in the gauntlet, if you will. Anyway, Zachi comes out, we bring back in Eddie. Eddie takes it out with one Aurora Beam, making very easy for us. Now comes Executor. Now Executor we swap in a box. We didn't keep with Eddie because I didn't want Eddie to waste any more PP, because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to actually one-shot it, because I know it's pretty bulky. But I know that Box, being very unique and his ability to have very high special defense, could take anything he naturally dished out to us. And we just spam Fly to kind of take it out. Of course, you know, kind of the free stuff. But with Will and the Psychic types defeated, next we actually have Koga. Now Koga's a pretty interesting one. Koga does have an Ariados to start off with, who's a bug type, who's incredibly susceptible to us. So we leave that with Pillow, because Pillow has that nice poison typing to resist any kind of tomfoolery he could do. Take it out with one shot from the wing attack. Then he brings in Venomoth and do the exact same thing. So that's 2 Pokemon down, 3 left form, and we're riding smooth. Now, Fortress is a little difficult because it has a partial steel typing, so we swap to the one Pokemon we have that can kind of meddle with this kind of thing, that being Valentina, because that powerful Surf is really good coverage for particular attack to actually have. Now, after it goes down, we have Muck. Muck is very weird, and the reason being I swapped him to Teth was to flay the Leech Seed in case he got very weird with Minimize, because Minimize Muck is super annoying. That's why we use Leech Seed and Confused Ray and try to do our best to swing on it with, again, Pillow, because of that poison resistance. If any of you actually fought Minimize Muck back in the day, you know what I'm talking about, so I didn't want any tomfoolery. I wanted a guaranteed win condition against it. Now, speaking of Crobat, Koga brings out his own Crobat, and then we swap the Box. Now, the reason I swapped the Box is because Box has Confusion. No, it's not Stab, but it's the only Pokemon we actually have with Confusion. I mean, because Andres doesn't really get it. Now, mind you, with the Toxic that he hit us with, and the Double Team, it's kind of hard to really land all of the Confusion hits. So eventually we swap out, bring Andreas back in, and then Andreas kind of, you know, he suffers a wing attack and a Toxic, but we use Nightshade to take him out. With Koga down, leaves the absolute worst member of the Elite Four for us to fight. By worse, I mean worse for him. Bruno, the fighting guy. And we're all flying types, so you know this is going to be 100% free. Speaking of free, Andreas, Future Sight, just a setup for the next guy, because we know the Fly is going to take out the Hitmontop. Free, easy, you know what I'm saying? So next is Onyx. Onyx is kind of interesting, but we have Valentina. Again, anybody with rocks, Valentina comes in because she has the super effective Surf for them butt cheeks. And that's kind of what happened. The Future Sight did a little bit of damage, but the Surf finishes right off. Excuse me, not the Surf, the Bulbasaur finishes right off. But Hitmonchan comes out and has Elemental Punches, but in this game, Elemental Punches are special, and Hitmonchan doesn't have good special. So more Andreas and just, you know, cleans him up. But after that, Machamp comes in and we bring out Teth. Now, of course, Machamp is going to be a bit of a tough one because he has solid bulk in all regards. So we have to hit him with the Tomfoolery. What did I say? Anybody who's bulky, we hit with the Tomfoolery, the Leech Seed sleep stuff. Mind you, I got a little cocky. I said, yo, we can keep Andreas in 2 Rock Slides. Honestly, that was not the smart play. I should have used Fly at least to, you know, not spam, but take advantage of the Leech Seed. But, you know, misplays, whatnot. Anyway, Box comes in to clean up, puts up a Reflect as Bruno goes to heal, which helps us a lot, and then we just spam Confusion while he's asleep. Thanks to Hypnosis, of course. But that's pretty much how Machamp gets covered. After Machamp, though, he brings in his Hitmonlee. Now, Hitmonlee, another super free Pokemon, incredibly frail. It takes little to nothing, but with Pillow being faster, we use Wing Attack and clean it up in a one-shot. That was basically it. Could have been even freer, but I kind of misplayed on the Machamp. Next, we have Karen, who has the Dark types, and Dark types are kind of interesting because, well, they kind of swing on Andreas, so we can't really rely on Andreas and its Future Sight and Fly tactics, so we have to use other Pokemon. Now, Umbreon as a starter is very, very bulky, and again, the bulk, when we come into contact with bulky Pokemon, we bring in Teth with some form of either Leech Seed and Sleep or Leech Seed and Poison. In this case, it was Leech Seed and Poison because Umbreon is bulky, but it can't hit us back, really. So we just had to go with means to just will it down even quicker. After that, we bait in Houndoom. Of course, we knew it's gonna happen, so we swap into Valentina, of course. Valentina hits it with the Surf and washes it down the drain. Because Houndoom didn't really have a whole lot of bulk. I was truly surprised that it lived the first Surf. Figured it was a low roll, but the second Surf actually takes it out in a one-shot. Fantastic. Now, Gengar could have been really scary, but it messed up and used Curse on turn 1. And then after that, I was able to use Confusion. I swapped the Box because Box is a normal type, and it can't use any of its stab moves against us. The stab moves being, not all of its stab moves. It has Stab, Sludge Bomb, and Shadow Ball, but it couldn't use Shadow Ball on us. That resistance was nice. Afterwards, it swaps to Murkrow, but we swap to Itty, and it's a flying type, so Itty just hits it with the Aurora Beam, one-shots it, and then leads into our last Pokemon, which is Vileplume. We swap back into Box, and then Box just does Box stuff. Does Fly, and kind of just gets rid of Vileplume because, you know, the super effective damage, of course. Now, with Karen gone and defeated, that leaves us with just the champion, and I'm actually really nervous this time because all of Lance's Pokemon are very, very powerful. Dragon-type Pokemon. We have Gyarados coming off the roof. We have 3 Dragonites. We have Aerodactyl. We have Charizard to contest with. And I was pretty uncertain on how this was going to go. But I remembered that when I fought Claire, how we won with Claire was because we had Teth, Sleep, Leech Seed, Swap to Itty, Aurora Beam. And that's kind of what we did. Every Pokemon came out to us, and we slept with Teth and used some Leech Seed, or we immediately went to another Pokemon like Itty who can take it out. But for the Gyarados, we went extra ham. So it was Leech Seed, Sleep, Swap the Pillow for the Confuse Ray, and then Wing Attack. Just in case it woke up and it was confused, it would hit itself, and then Gyarados would take his own self out, which was amazing actually. I was really happy to see that. His first Dragonite comes out, we swap back into Teth, of course, and we use Sleep Powder. Now, immediately after this, we swap into Itty, and I learned that even at level 47, as a Delibird, a super weak Pokemon, Itty was strong enough to take out Lance's Dragonite with one shot. I was elated, super happy to see this happen. So after that, he brings in Charizard because, you know, I am Ice type, so he wants his with that Fire sub. We bring back in Valentina, of course. Valentina hits the Surf on the Charizard after tanking a pretty nice hit and takes out the Charizard in one shot. Good deal. Now, Lance's second Dragonite comes out, and of course, as always, we swap right directly back into Teth. Teth does what Teth does, puts things to sleep. Luckily, we've not missed a single sleep after the debacle that was the Magneton with our rival fight. But we swap back into Itty. Itty charges up that nice little Aurora Beam and sends Lance's second Dragonite packing with another one-shot. Amazing. But after that, it's Aerodactyl. Super scary Pokemon, super fast, super strong. Rock Stab can literally one-shot my entire team, but Teth is faster, okay? With that, the Sleep Powder, and then we swap back into Pillow. That was actually a misclick. It wasn't supposed to be Pillow, but I decided let's go ahead and run with it, because had it woke up on Itty, I don't think it could have actually one-shot Aerodactyl with Aurora Beam, and if not, the Aerodactyl would 100% kill Itty in the next one shot, and we didn't need that to happen. So we leave in Pillow, and then luck it out with some Confusion and some Bite, and we actually took him out. Shout out to Pillow for carrying. Now, we're down to Lance's final Pokemon and his final Dragonite. Of course, we bring in Itty off the top because I'm feeling real saucy. We outspeed, hit with Aurora Beam, and didn't one-shot. Unfortunately, Itty goes down to a Fire Blast. I mean, them's the breaks. Sorry, Itty, you almost had it. But of course, we swap back into Teth. We knew he was going to use a full restore, so we slept it anyway. And, well, didn't expect the full heal, but Leech Seed literally confirms the fact that we're going to win. After that, we swap back into Box, who was our starter, so it just feels natural to finish it off with the starter. Box tanks a very not too great Fire Blast because, you know, it was meant for Jump Bluff. Then we use Fly. Fly guarantees that we get some Leech Seed recovery every other turn, come down, take a couple of hits. Huge crit on that Outrage, but luckily we have really high special defense because Dragon is special in this game. And then we just, you know, Leech Seed and Fly, and eventually with that we take out Lance's final Dragonite and win the challenge. Pokemon, was this Crystal or Silver? I can't remember which one I opted for. Second generation Pokemon game, monotype only, flying types. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I had no faith in this run. Initially, I had like no faith in this run. I knew Noctowl was a terrible Pokemon. I couldn't believe I failed the fact that I was actually, well, I failed a bit of a mix-up with a friend of mine who said, hey, run Delibird, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm actually gonna run it, and I did run a Delibird, so that's wild to me. Never used Mantine. Jumpluff was actually the only Pokemon I've used previously, and I knew Jumpluff was really good, but every other Pokemon, because it's Gen 2 learn sets are absolutely abysmal. Pokemon don't learn nothing. So even if the Pokemon itself is pretty decent, they don't learn anything, so they can't really do anything with its decent stats. I'm looking at Crobat here. And even in a worse case, not necessarily a worse case, but Andreas, the Exatu, a really, really good Pokemon with a really, really good stab typing who learns no stabs. Ridiculous. So I'm happy to be done with this challenge. It was a fun one, it really was. I gained a whole new respect for a lot of these Pokemon. And thank you all so much for watching. And we will do a Gen 3 run. I already figured out the typing we're going to use. The typing is going to be water. But before I start the recording, if you have an idea as to what the next typing should be in our Gen 3 run, we're going to be running Pokemon Sapphire. Not Emerald. I'm choosing Sapphire simply and explicitly and only because I like the font in the text. That's literally it. But if you want me to use water types, say nothing. But if you want me to have a different typing of Pokemon using a mono run for the Gen 3, say something in the comments and I'll abide by the first person I see. With that said, everyone, it's been your boy. Have a wonderful day. Take care.